Economic aspects of early Kadamba period. In order to understand the economic aspects, we need to understand the geographical divisions of a region. Traditional division of a region is Grama, Nagara, Keta, Karvada, Madamba, and Dronamukha. Aparajita Prucha, an architectural text of 12th century, mentions Purardam Bhavet Grame, Gramardam Chaiva Ketakam. That is, Nagara is twice the area of Grama, Keta is twice the area of Nagara. That is, each area is twice the area of earlier class. So this is a pyramidical representation of a traditional division of a region. Grama is the smallest unit. The next unit would be Nagara, and next would be Kerta, Karvada, Madamba, and Dronamukha would be the largest division of a region. So geographical divisions of early Kadamba period, we find Rashtra, nation, Desha, state, Rajya, state, Vishaya, Mandala, Nadu, and Grama. So usually we find Vishaya or Mandala in the Kadamba records. For example, nation, we find Sindhutraya Rashtra in Vishnu Varma year 3rd Biru record, and Karnataka Desha as Samagra Karnataka Desha Bhuvarga Bhartara in Vishnu Varma year 3rd Biru record. We find state representation as Antarmalaya Rajya in Mrigesha Varma year 2nd record. Mandala is mentioned in 2 inscriptions. Dasha Mandalika, that is 10 divisions officer, is mentioned in Batari Kakusta Talgunda door frame inscription. Ashtadasha Mandalika, that is 18 divisions officer, is mentioned in Ravi Varma Gudnapur inscription. Vishaya is said to be a division within a mandala, but in a wider sense, it may also represent a division. Otherwise, Vishaya and mandala are interchangeable. So we find many records which mention Vishaya in early Kadamba period. For example, Gabdika Vishaya is mentioned in Krishna Varma year 1st, Krishna Varma 1st year 15th record. Vallavi Vishaya is mentioned in Krishna Varma 2nd year 7th record. Vallavi is supposed to be Vallave 70 of 10th century, which is the present day Belagutti in Nyamti Taluk of Davangere district. Panktipura Vishaya is mentioned in Krishna Varma 2nd year 15th record of Kirakoppaturu in Haveri district. Panktipura is supposed to be Hangal, the present day Hangal of Haveri district. We have Karvangada Vishaya in Krishna Varma 2nd year 19th record. This is supposed to be in Sirsi Taluk of North Kannada district. Sendraka Vishaya is mentioned in Simha Varma year 8th record, Mudigere record, Krishna Varma 2nd Bennu record. Mogalur Vishaya is mentioned in Ravi Varma year 5th Nilambur record. Asande Vishaya is mentioned in Ravi Varma Durmia Grant, Kadur Taluk of Chikmagaluru district. Suddhi Kunduru Vishaya is mentioned in Hari Varma year 4th record. Suddhi Kunduru is supposed to be in Halsi of Kanapur district in Kanapur Taluk in Belgaum district. Malapalli Vishaya is mentioned in Hari Varma year 7th Arthalakade record. Malapalli is in Shikaripur Taluk of Shivamoga district. Mahisha Vishaya is mentioned in Vishnu Varma's Perbata record. Perbata is supposed to be in Kolar district, so Mahisha Vishaya would be there in Kolar district. Tagare Vishaya is mentioned in Bogi Varma's record. Tagare Mahagrama is mentioned. Mahagrama would mean the headquarter of a village. So Tagare division had 24 villages, and this Tagare was the capital, and it is called as Mahagrama. This is mentioned in this is present in Belur taluk of Chikmagalur district. Naridavule Nadu is mentioned in Halmidi inscription. We find many officers in Kadamba record. The officers would help them in managing the economic aspects. We find Senapati, a leader of forces, Rajjuka, a measurer, Mandalika, a divisional officer, Bojaka, a village head. We find an officer called Senapati, leader of forces. Dama Senapati is said to have reckoned a record of Priyavrata Varma's 12th year regnal year. Shrutakirti Senapati is mentioned in Kakustha Varma Halsi record. Naravara Senapati is mentioned in Vijaya Shiva Mrigesha Varma 4th year record. Damakirti, a Bojaka, is mentioned in Mrigesha Varma 3rd record. Kirtivara is mentioned in Mrigesha Varma 6th regnal record and Hitna Hebbagil record. Damodara Datta is mentioned in Shivamanda through Kudigira record. Like this, we find mention of officers in Kadamba period. See, Priyavrata Varma is in Priyavrata Varma's period we find Dama Senapati. In Shivamandruta's period we find Damodara Datta, who is also known as Rahasyadhikari. In Kakusta's period we find Senapati Shrutakirti. Mrugesha Varma's period we find Naravara Senapati and Damakirti as Bojaka. During Ravi Varma period we find Jayakirti. Land measure is usually in the form of donation. We find two terms mentioned in the inscriptions. They are Nivartana and Mettar. We find about 15 records mentioning Nivartana. See, Priyavrata Varma 6th year regnal record mentions 30 Nivartana. Priyavrata Varma's 12th year regnal record mentions 100 Nivartana, that is 25 Nivartanas in each direction. Shanti Varma's 2nd year regnal record mentions 12 Nivartana. Mrigesha Varma's 3rd year regnal record mentions 40 Nivartanas of black cotton soil, 4 Nivartana for a Jinalaya, 1 Nivartana for flower. Mrigesha Varma's 6th year record mentions 6 Nivartana earlier donated by Priyavrata Varma and 6 Nivartana earlier donated by Mandatri. Mrigesha Varma's 8th record mentions 33 Nivartanas for Jinalaya. Ravi Varma's 11th year record mentions 15 Nivartana. Ravi Varma's 34th year mentions 4 Nivartanas. Ravi Varma's another Halasi record mentions 4 Nivartana. Ravi Varma's another record mentions 6 plus 4 plus 4 plus 2, that is about 16 Nivartanas in 4 villages. Devavarma record mentions 12 Nivartana. Vishnu Varma's 9th year record mentions 6 Nivartana. Simha Varma's 5th year mentions 5 Nivartana. Krishna Varma's second year Bennu record mentions 6 Nivartana. Like this we find Nivartana in a lot of inscriptions. But only one inscription of Mrigesha Varma mentions Mattar, which is a Kannada term which is mentioned in later inscriptions of 8th century onwards till the Vijayanagara Empire. See, the scales which are used for measuring the land are Rajamana and Karpateshwaramana. Rajamana is mentioned in about 15 records and Karpateshwaramana is mentioned in 2 records. Rajamana would be the measure approved by the king. For example, we have a Badami Chalukya inscription where in Kurugoda of Ballari district, where 18 spans is carved on a rock, and at the end there is a carving of a boar which shows that this measuring rod had the approval of the royalty. So similarly, now we have Rajamana mentioned in Lakshmeshwar inscription of Shiratti Taluk, Gadag district during 735 and Adur in Nargun Taluk of Dharwad district during 750 CE Rajamana Kolu, Kolalu in Hiriyur Taluk of Chitradurga district in 1031 CE. Rajamana Danda in Shigami Taluk, Shigam district 1055 CE. Rajahasta, Bokyapur of Dharwad district 1163. Like this, we find Rajamana, that is the scale which has been approved by the royalty. We have another measure which is called as Karpateshwaramana, where this measure is named after a god. Similarly, we have, for example, in Talgunda, we have a measure named after Pranameshwara, which is called as Pranameshwara Devara Kadamba. Similarly, in Balligave, we have Berundeshwara Gade. Like that, there were scales in name of God, scales approved by the king. Now, after the donation or before donation, the land was classified into different forms. For example, we find Kajjana type of land in Priyavratavarma year 6th record, Balovara Kshetra in Kakusta Halsi plate record, Mumkali Kshetra and Pukkali Kshetra in Ravi Varma 35-year record. Pukkali is said to be a paddy field. The highest and lowest donation as noticed would be 100 Nivartana and 10 Mattar, 1 Nivartana for a flower garden, half Nivartana for a house site. Now one wonders, what would be the area of a Nivartana? Various scholars have given different areas. For example, Sarkar has given us 4.75 acres, 2.25 acres, 2 acres, 3/4 of an acre, 3/5 of an acre. Like this, different areas have been given for a Nivartana. But records of later period, for example, 12th century record of Kudithini and Huvinadagli, we find that Nivartana or Mattar varied according to the classification of the land. So Mattar is mentioned, as said earlier, it is a Kannada term. In Kittel dictionary, find Mattar has to be a measure of a quantity of a land. In Kannada, it is written as Mattar is called as Nelada Pavan. Modern equivalent of a Mattar. See, the modern equivalent of a Mattar can be taken as 4 acres. This 4 acres is mentioned as one kurige of land in North Karnataka or otherwise in Dharwad, Gadag, Bijapur area. So they usually mention the land in terms of kurige. Kurige is finds mentioned in Abhigiri record of Vijayanagara period. But generally, we can assume that it is about 4 acres of a land. Mattar and Nivartana being contemporary terms, we can assume Nivartana to be equivalent to 4 acres of land generally. So, Priyavratavarma record of 100 Mattas in a village would roughly, 100 Nivartanas in a village would roughly be equivalent to 400 acres of a land. We find the donation of a 26th Aratni Matra of a land as a house site. Matra is the measure of an angula. Aratni is the measure of a elbow or otherwise 24 angula length. Matra is an inch. Aratni is generally an elbow length. Aratni Matra would be 24 angula scale. Based on an 8th century angula, 4 centimeters, this scale would be 96 centimeters long, roughly 3 feet. So the house site of 26 Aratni Matra would be 26 into 3, 26 into 3, or otherwise 78 into 78 feet, or 6,084 square feet, which is roughly 5.5 gunta. So the land donation for a site was roughly 5 guntas in one instance. Now we come to taxation. So we have Abhata Pravesha in many records. One such record is Malavalli record of Mrigesha Varma year 8 and Mandatri record of year 2. Abhata Pravesha is entry freedom of Bhattas. We find Panga and Utkota in Mrigeshwarma year 7, that is 467 CE. Hitna Hebbagilu, Piriyapatna, Hunsur Taluk, Mysore district. Panga is said to be 1/4 of the produce. Utkota presents to the king or others, as said by DC Sarkar. Antakara Vishtam and Akatva Vasudanam is mentioned in Shivamanda through year 2nd Kudigere record. Antakara Vishtam would be all incoming tax. Vishti would mean incoming tax. In Ravi Varma undated Telgunda inscription, we find Shadbhaga, that is 1/6 of some entity. In Halmidi inscription, we find Pattondu. In Krishna Varma second Bennur record, we find Rajabhaga as Dashabandha or 1/10. This would mean that the taxation on any particular village or an area would be Panga 1/4, 25%, Shadbhaga 1/6, 16.66%, Rajabhaga as Pattondi as 1/10 would be 10%. So we see a gradual reduction of the taxation, which would be 25%, 16%, and 10%. Lastly, during Halmidi inscription, we find the taxation given to a particular doni is 10% of the produce of that village. Sarva Parihara is mentioned in Malavalli record and also Tagara record. Sarva Parihara would mean free of all taxes. For example, Agrahara was free from all taxes. So any village which was donated to a particular person was given as Sarva Parihara, that is free from all taxes. So we find currency also. Recently in 2006, we found 14 coins with legend Sri Dosha Rashi on the front side and the back side as Shashanka. Another coin with Dosha Rashi was found. This is supposed to be a coin belonging to Krishna Varma II because that inscription mentions Dosha Rashi. But now the recent record of Krishna Varma first mention him as Dosha Rashi Narendraha. That is, probably now we can ascertain this coin Dosha Rashi to Krishna Varma 2, Krishna Varma 1, sorry. We find another coin as Sri Manarashi. Who was called as Manarashi, we don't know. Earlier, Padmatanka coins were said to be belonging to Kadamba period, but we are not certain which king issued this coin. Thank you.